Hello and welcome back to another Total War video we have for today. Big news, Total War is back in full force, the newest reveals, and we got tons of info during the show and tell live stream. And since there's a lot of info to go over, we're just going to recap everything from the whole stream in this video, and I will have future videos breaking down each segment in a bit more detail. Also, if you only care about one certain segment, I'm going to have timestamps down below if you want to skip ahead in the video. So the first thing Creative Assembly goes over is the approach to making the unit rosters Medieval 3 by trying to be historically accurate as possible, which is great to hear as a big history fan myself. And one thing CA likes to clarify during the live stream as well, for Medieval 3, much of this is still in pre-production, so very far out from coming out. So there's many mistakes here and there, but no worries if it doesn't look perfect. Again, a lot of this is going to be fixed or just be updated when the game comes out, of course. So the first roster we'll be getting is the Holy Roman Empire. We don't have much detail about them, but we do have some interesting unit designs that show off the potential units that could be part of their faction at launch. Creative Assembly are also looking at Arabian factions as well, so hopefully that means the scope of the game will be much bigger than past games at least. They said as well they're trying something new with the rosters, so instead of a normal roster depending on what faction you might play, it will now be more regional and dynamic. So now you'll have a base roster of units like any other faction, and when you conquer other lands you'll be able to recruit units from those certain cultures, making your armies have a bit more variety. But if you're not a fan of being able to share so many units across all these different factions, there will still be ones that are unique that can only be recruited by a certain faction, so you can still have your thematic armies that go along with whatever culture you're playing as. There are going to be regional identities for revolt armies, so it's kind of similar to what Warhammer 3 already has and how it's based on their settlements. And one thing I found pretty interesting is the ladders are being worked on with the units that are going to be able to carry them in battle, which is amazing to see since many players know Warhammer has been plagued with ass ladders for years, and nobody enjoys when walls become useless in a siege, unless you're the attacker, of course. And speaking of sieges, I guess castle sieges are being currently looked at, and I'm unsure if they can make it work yet, so hopefully in the future they'll have it in the game, because sieging a castle seems pretty doable, especially in such early development stage. And the last major thing they want to talk about Medieval 3 is that they're planning on bringing back naval battles, which is a pretty big deal, and it's a when, not an if, so even if it's not at launch, it will definitely be in the game afterwards. So no matter what, this is going to be fantastic for the game, because many players have been asking for this for a very long time, including myself, just for any Total War game to have naval battles. Then the next time we'll get more news for Medieval 3 is going to be in sometime June with a giant blog and stream. Now onto Rome 2, one of Total War's classic games. It's going to be getting a legacy update with Creative Assembly going back to their older games, fixing up old bugs or adding new mechanics to help out certain factions that might be lackluster, or things that they've always wanted to add in the game but just never did. This will also be free to everyone who owns the game, and the DLCs might change, but it'd be more like an update or a rework to a faction, nothing like, removing units or anything like that. The legacy update is going to be in 3 parts. First with the Mars for battle gameplay, with unit spacing, battle balancing. Units will also be better at recognizing enemy units from afar, and even how armor will work differently. Then we have Venus for visuals, improving the lighting and textures in the campaign map, and I guess they'll also be including textures from Pharaoh to give the water and map a bit more polish. And then lastly we have Jupiter. It's going to be making sweeping changes over the game, like campaign gameplay. Building trees will be getting updates. Barracks will also do more than just give you units, they'll now give you army cap recruitment slots, so now you need to build more to field more armies, adding some depth to how you recruit. And for anyone who's worried about their mods, you'll be able to play them in the older builds, so you just go into your settings, all you have to do, and CA will use the beta system to allow modders to update their mods ahead of time before the official update comes out, so everything's kind of on time. Rome 2 will also be getting a new technology tree that'll be similar in vein to the recent tech updates in Warhammer 3. It's going to split into different paths, with military having increased unit caps, allows you to recruit certain units a bit easier. And as for an example, you can go through the tree and get a trader tech that will roll into a wine trader that will lead into stuff like getting the Roman spies, making the tech tree much more important than it used to be. And one thing I know many players are looking forward to, but CA said they will not be adding currently to any of the older titles, and that's going to be the 64-bit, but they did say not to rule it out in the future, so there still is a little bit of hope they will be added. As well as one thing they revealed is that there's only one person working on this, which is kind of shocking. You'd think they could at least, have like maybe 5 people be working on it, but I think one is, I guess, their max currently. And do not expect any more like content or DLC, nothing like that. Kind of just at most I would say like a new mechanic maybe. And just like Medieval 3, we'll be getting info sometime in June. I don't think we're gonna get like a stream or nothing, but we'll definitely get like a blog post going over one of the first updates they'll add, maybe a rework to something. Now onto my favorite segment of Warhammer 3. We got the first in-game look at one of the brand new Lords of the End Time DLC characters, as well as Grand Cathay FLC and even some reworks. And if you don't want to miss any future Total War news, hit that subscribe button and keep up to date and also help the channel grow at the same time. The first of the changes is going to be for the campaign AI. It will now be updated in 8.1 after the Grand Cathay DLC. The main change is that the AI's focus will now shift over campaign, so the enemy will now start to adapt to how you play over time. So instead of just stacking armies and attacking with brute force like they usually do in the late game, now they'll be a bit more tactful, recruiting units that might counter yours. Then for the update many players and myself have been waiting for, the siege rework, we're going to be getting it during 9.1, which is after the Lord of the End Time DLC, which is a little disappointing, but I'm still glad we have a date for it instead of just an update we're just waiting for forever. And probably the best part of the rework is there's going to be no more ass ladders, but instead you can toggle it on or off in the settings, so if you want to play the old way you can. And in addition, the new siege riders look really great. I love how each faction has their own unique version, because in the beta it was kind of just all wood, and I was kind of fine with that, but you know, now seeing the concept artwork looks really good, and hopefully it just makes sieges a lot more interesting for the attacker. And one thing before we move on is they did talk about that maybe if they're able to, they're gonna let ghost units go through walls, but it's definitely gonna be a future update after the rework. Then we got our first look at Bathsheba, the Grand Cathay DLC, and alongside her, the FLC hero coming in update 8.0. And during the live stream, we also saw Bathsheba do a little bit of battle gameplay and her unit card. And for those who don't know, she's a mercenary of the White Tigers who are experts at fighting in chaos and is allied with Grand Cathay. It'll be the first ever character pack in the game. Her abilities looked really cool, especially if they're teleporting across the map. I thought that was really interesting. It's going to combine really well with her being a monstrous character on top of her being sneaky. And how she teleports is because of one of her items called Heaven's Gate, allowing her to freely teleport across the map, letting the player as well go after any enemy caster behind enemy lines without needing to break the front line first. And the FLC hero is going to be Tao Young the Merciless and will be available for anyone who owns any part of the Grand Cathay roster. She was an exiled warrior and was very brutal fighting the rebellion, so she became a mercenary for Grand Cathay and is very focused on anti-large as well as high damage output with her Talon Spear. With this new DLC Grand Cathay is getting, we'll also have some updates. First, the hero units like the Gate Master will be getting new skills and mounts, making them much better on the battlefield since you have so many points that you don't go to anything useful, especially combat skills, and you're kind of forced to invest in the blue line. And just like every update, we're also getting a new tech tree that is split between the yin and yang, adding things that will actually be useful instead of buffing your peasants while you're at turn 70, and the tree will also benefit each lord differently, having different skills. And then we have the last bit of information for Warhammer 3, but probably the most important. We have the first in-game look at the legendary lord for the end times. It'll be Boris Todbringer for the Empire as a real legendary lord this time with a brand new model as well. I'm super glad I was wrong about him not being in the DLC because I think he looks fantastic. And he will still be staying in mid lane as his starting position, but no more will he be defensive. He'll now beat back all the enemies of the Empire to reclaim the glory of Ulfric and finally take down Kazakh One Eye. Boris will also have an ability for himself and his units called Crush the Weak, with speed and damage with each enemy with wavering leadership or lower, which definitely tells you that he'll be a fast moving high damage faction, definitely to mix up how the Empire normally plays. And to make Todbringer even more interesting, they're going to give him two different voices for Toddy. The original and the new one that can be switched for custom battles, and the voice actor is a fan favorite person of Toddy. I didn't really know anything about this person before this, so I did my own little research. I think it's very cool they're putting him in the game. I do wish it'll be put in the campaign. I have a feeling they might do that before it comes out. Hopefully we can do both, but we'll just have to see when it comes out. We also got our first look at the Todbringer Guard, who come from the Cult of Ulfric, that are elite frontline troops of the Empire that are heavily armored and have AP damage alongside expert charge defense, making your front lines much tougher and hopefully give the Empire a chance against chaos with melee. I'm a big fan of infantry units, so I think they look really good. Maybe a little too strong for tier 3, but again, they always get balanced out by the time they come out. And then the last unit we got to look at is the Knights Panthar, being anti-large and having shields, making them great to take out monstrous infantry units or when you need a strong charge. They don't seem all that special to me, but I assume they're hiding a few details that are probably tied to the new mechanics, probably something with their combat of course, but they do look really cool nonetheless. I really enjoyed the helmets. And since there's been so much speculation for the DLC, we got some teaser images for the community to figure out. We have 3 units here. My best guess is one of them that with the chain is the Imperial Dragon. But let me know down below what you guys think these units could be. And we're still going to get more info on the DLC. So for Grand Cathay, that's going to be coming this May. And for Lords of the End Times, it'll be sometime in June. Most likely with a live stream, just like the Medieval 3 stuff. And the last game we're covering is the news for Warhammer 40k's battle maps. And since the trailer left much to be desired, hopefully this will kind of get people hyped for the game again. Especially since, you know, the whole point of the game is big massive battles and that's what people really want. So we got to look at one of the Hive plans planets that's kind of a waste planet, hence why it has cities and is very just dirty and barren. Each planet will have different biomes, like one world of ice or one full of desert, as well as different types of civilizations and factions fighting each other, so it's not just you and one other enemy on the battlefield, just to spice things up so you're not feeling like all the planets are just copy and paste. So let's say you want to conquer one planet, you'll have to fight through all the different biomes and regions. Like this planet, you're fighting outside the hive cities, with the map being more open with a little bit less cover, but when you fight inside the city, you'll have tighter spaces, but as well as you can destroy buildings to make new paths or lock down parts of the map to get more cover. And it does seem like the planets themselves are 3D maps, which is really cool, but that could change in the future, but I really hope this stays a feature when the game launches. Each system will have a handful of planets, but they haven't set a specific number yet, but I assume the galaxy map will still be pretty big, especially the one at the end of the trailer they showed, so there's still a lot of space to fight. Now we get our first actual look at the battle maps themselves, with them looking very spacious and large enough to have multiple battles going on the map at once. And to make it more tactical, you can see the forest, so you can just open fire on it and destroy all the trees to make more room for whatever strategy you have in mind. Hopefully we can do more of like little trench like tunnels, like, you know, if artillery shells hit the ground you can make a foxhole. I'm unsure if that's gonna exactly be possible, but I really do hope so. One thing they brought up that I've already mentioned is that you're not always alone on the planet. Sometimes depending on what's happening around you, you can see other factions fighting, and you can also choose to help them depending on your alignment. We also get a way better look at the maps that was shown during the trailer, and it looks much better. And one thing CA likes to mention is that if you don't like how dense the map feels, again, just feel free to wreck any building in your way. So it definitely seems like it's trying to be like a bit more of a sandbox of how you approach battles, but the downside is that your enemies can do the same thing to you as well, so you might want to use cover for your infantry that might not fare well against mass artillery. Another change is the deployment zone, so you can land your troops on any side of the map, so it's going to be either north or south, east or west, and it's going to be very similar to how I guess the tabletop works. So for example, if you're defending, your units are really placed in a defensive corner, or behind much cover just so you can get an upper hand on the enemy. And during this, we technically got our first in-game look at the guardsmen, and I think the units look very good design-wise, and I'm still glad it looks like a Total War game, but I do understand people being worried about how the formations look, so hopefully this will just show how large the maps are, and they actually, you know, can hide behind cover properly and take formations instead of, you know, shooting at the enemy like their Napoleon era. Then the next map they show off is also from the trailer. It's arid and has a bunch of buildings, so it's a mix of open and closed spaces, so the attacker might have to fight in the open to make it to the cover while the defender is already behind all the buildings. So far, I'm really enjoying the battle maps. As much as the unit, you know, formations got me a little concerned, I still think it looks good overall. And there's going to be tons of stuff planned for 40k, and just like the rest of them, we're going to see more news about the game at the end of June. Hopefully we can start seeing the unit roster, at least that'd be my hope, or maybe any of the lords. And that's going to be all the announcements we had for the reveal of the show and tell live stream. I thought the reveal of Boris Todbringer was fantastic, alongside the FLC hero of Grand Cathay. Can't wait to see what else the Lords of the End Time DLC has in store for us. Also, the siege rework is definitely a win in my book, and that also includes a myriad of updates coming to the other games. And let me know down below how you felt about all the announcements. Which one did you like? Which one did you hate? I can't wait to see more info about them myself, and remember, I got more videos going soon over each segment about more detail, since there was just so much to cover in this one video. So thank you so much for watching the video. I really appreciate it. Like and subscribe to help grow the channel, and I will see you guys later.